A new and unexpected turn has emerged in the trade war, and now the issue is not just rising prices, but the fact that dozens of countries are effectively cutting the United States off from normal trade. More than 30 countries have already suspended or restricted mail shipments to America. Among them are not only distant nations, but also close U.S. allies: Germany, France, Austria, India, Denmark, Sweden, Italy, and now the United Kingdom. All of them have announced that they are halting deliveries. The reason is simple. Trump's tariff policy created such confusion that trade with the United States has become virtually impossible. At the core of the crisis is the sudden cancellation of a long-standing rule allowing duty-free import of packages valued up to $800. For years, this exemption allowed millions of Americans to receive goods from abroad without additional charges. It fueled the growth of online commerce, kept prices affordable, and enabled millions of shoppers and entrepreneurs to use the system without problems. But the White House abolished the rule overnight, without explaining how the new system would function. Customs officials received no new instructions. Carriers like DHL are unsure who is responsible for collecting duties, and other governments decided they no longer want to deal with the chaos. In the end, it is easier for them to halt all shipments to the US. Consider what this means. For decades, Americans had free access to cheap foreign goods, from clothing and electronics to holiday gifts delivered right to their doors. Now the system is collapsing, prices are rising, deliveries are being canceled, and foreign partners are making it clear they have no intention of accommodating Washington. And the list of countries taking this stance will only grow until the US clarifies the rules. So let's look at the full picture. Today, we are witnessing the collapse of something most Americans never even considered: the ability to order goods from anywhere in the world and receive them at home without difficulty. Now, the risk that a package might not arrive at all has become real. This week marked the end of a rule that for many years supported millions of shoppers and small businesses. We are talking about the de minimis exemption, which allowed packages valued up to $800 to be imported duty-free. It made online shopping accessible, supported entrepreneurs, and for many was a lifeline. In 2024, the volume of such shipments exceeded $1.36 billion, according to customs authorities. Every day, more than 4 million packages arrived in the US, and over half of them came from China. Reuters reports that more than 30% were accounted for by just two sellers, Temu and Shein. This highlighted how crucial this mechanism had become for consumers. But Trump canceled it abruptly, nearly 2 years earlier than Congress had planned, and the consequences were immediate. Officially, the White House presents this as a step to reduce dependence on imports and close loopholes benefiting China. In reality, however, it has created chaos. Customs officials do not know how to process shipments, major carriers are delaying deliveries, and more than a dozen countries have put everything on hold: France, Germany, India, the United Kingdom, Japan, Switzerland. Governments refuse to operate under rules that simply no longer exist. And it is not giants like Shein and Temu who suffer most, but ordinary Americans. For many years, affordable imports formed the foundation of entrepreneurship. Now, everyday consumers and small businesses are bearing the full weight of the new policy. What once cost $100 can now end up costing $180, $260, or even $300. While the United States is sinking into chaos, other countries are reorganizing. Canada is helping small businesses find alternative routes. Brazil, even after 50% tariffs, is actively expanding into Asian markets. China, the primary target of tariff pressure, has already redirected part of its trade through South America and Europe while continuing to supply goods worldwide. In the end, others benefit, while American consumers face less choice and higher prices. Until recently, 4 million packages arrived in the US daily, fueling an entire small business ecosystem. Today, that flow is dwindling, crushed by policies crafted more for headlines than real results. And now, the main question for entrepreneurs is no longer whether they can survive the tariffs, but whether they can survive at all. Many Americans have not yet felt the full impact, but as soon as they try to order something from Europe, the reality will become clear. Prices have skyrocketed, deliveries have vanished. A soccer jersey from London, a bag from Milan, phone accessories from Paris. All of these suddenly become either too expensive or unavailable. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning. To understand how poorly this policy is working, it is enough to look at the reactions of Europe and India. Their actions show that the tariff strategy has already backfired on the United States. DHL, one of the world's largest and most advanced logistics operators, has announced a suspension of many shipments to America. The reason is simple. The rules are so unclear that even a global company cannot figure out how to comply. Who should collect the duties? How will customs transfer the payments? How will exporters adapt their digital systems to the new requirements? There are no answers to these questions. And if even DHL, with decades of experience worldwide, is in the dark, imagine what this means for small businesses. For a family-run toy factory in Italy or a textile company in India, a system that even global carriers cannot navigate becomes completely impossible. For them, the only option is to stop shipments entirely. That is why governments intervened. European countries and India decided to pause deliveries so their exporters would not fall into the trap of uncertainty and legal risk. This protects their companies, provides clarity, and sends a clear signal to their citizens. They will not let national industries suffer due to chaos in Washington. This is not just a temporary pause, it is a deliberate choice. Europe and India have shown that they are willing to prioritize the interests of their exporters over access to the American market. This is what should alarm Washington. Other countries are no longer afraid to respond firmly. At the start of the trade war, Trump assumed the outcome was obvious. America still held the cards. It was the largest consumer market in the world, and nearly every country depended on American demand. China, Mexico, Brazil, and even close European allies all built their economies around stable access to the US market. This dependence gave the White House enormous leverage. When Trump imposed massive tariffs, governments scrambled for solutions. Some rushed to negotiate exemptions, others quietly absorbed losses just to maintain access to American buyers. Trump interpreted this as proof of eternal dominance, assuming he could tighten the screws indefinitely. But he missed the key point, that power is fragile. Once lost, it is extremely difficult to regain. Just a few months later, the balance had shifted dramatically. The US market no longer carries the weight it once did. Countries no longer wait for Washington's instructions. They adapt on their own, and they do it quickly. China, the primary target of Trump's economic attack, was among the first to feel the blow. Exports slowed, factories began to stall, and workers faced unpredictability. But Beijing responded swiftly. It issued subsidies, expanded the digital yuan network for international transactions, and linked the region with new supply chains. Today, the signal from China is clear. Whether Americans buy or not, its economy will keep running, and other paths have emerged. Brazil, once dependent on US demand for soy, is now selling record volumes to China and other Asian countries. India is focusing on its domestic market, developing internal consumption rather than chasing American buyers. Even Europe is deepening regional trade agreements and is no longer willing to rely so heavily on US demand. In essence, it was Trump's tariffs that accelerated the process. Washington feared most, the creation of a global trade system in which America is no longer at the center. And here lies a risk that cannot be ignored. Once new systems are built, they do not disappear. If China and its partners prove they can grow without the United States, Washington's previous leverage will vanish forever. This tariff crisis struck at the worst possible moment. American families are preparing for Black Friday and Christmas, the season that usually energizes the economy. But now it coincides with halted deliveries, rising import prices, and growing shortages. The time of year when people expect discounts and abundance risks turning into months of disappointment, empty shelves, and price shocks. The warning signs are already visible. Amazon reported a sharp 40% drop in summer sales. This is an alarming signal ahead of the holiday rush. If the largest online retailer feels the pressure, small merchants face even greater challenges. By canceling tariff exemptions and imposing new high fees, the White House has made delivering goods to American homes more expensive and complicated. This will directly hit family budgets, and the timing could not be worse. Holiday sales account for nearly a fifth of the annual revenue of the entire U.S. retail sector. For countless small and medium-sized businesses, these 2 months determine whether they end the year with profit or in debt. But instead of protecting this vital lifeline, Washington's tariff policy is undermining it. Factories in China, Vietnam, Bangladesh, and other Asian countries have guaranteed Americans access to cheap goods for decades. Without these supplies, shelves go empty, prices rise, and the familiar holiday spirit begins to fade. And now the main question is, if the world has already built a system that works without the United States, how soon will American families realize that they are paying more and getting less? To stay updated on these changes, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. See you in the next episode.